Okay, so, oh, man, I will fuck.
Check, check, check. Wait, this thing on? There we go. Hello? Check, check. Okay, what's up, dudes? Ah, that's fucking stupid. All right, guys, so what's going on? The last time we left off, I believe I had just gotten the Civic running, and I was feeling good about myself. Happy and everything, and then I don't know, then I basically messed up and now I have a huge oil leak underneath the car. I think it's coming from the rear main seal. So that's one thing we're gonna have to figure out today or within the next couple days. I really haven't had any time to look at the car because I've had some prior engagement that I had to get done before I could get back on the car after I got it running. Now I got those all out of the way, I can get back to it. First thing I'm gonna do definitely is cut the exhaust off because it's rattling on the header. I really need to make sure that the engine's put together good and that it's not making any weird noises that I need to get back into the engine for. If that's the case, then it doesn't even matter to fix the rear main seal. I might as well just take the whole engine out, fix all that, put it back in. I'm pretty sure that the rear main seal has maybe got folded somehow or didn't get put on. I'm still kind of getting used to the camera thing, so I'm sure that played into the idea that I may have put together something incorrectly. Plus, I'm not a professional engine builder, so there's that too. Either way, today I'm gonna go ahead and pull the car back up into the driveway, look underneath it, see if I can find exactly where the oil leak's coming from, cut the exhaust off so that's not making a bunch of noise and I can actually hear what the engine sounds like, or at least I can try. My welding skills aren't great, but I might even try my hand at welding a flange onto the exhaust so I can bolt it up, and then it should at least be quiet and I can tell what's making noise in the engine, what's just rattling, whatever. The car's old, it's got not the softest motor mounts in it, so that could be playing into it as well. Anyway, let's get into the video and figure out what is going on here.
Most of the time when we start these builds, we want the project to go exactly as planned with no issues. We take our time to put it together in a way that makes it work right the first time. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes issues arise that either you have dealt with before or maybe a new issue you can learn something from. I always try to focus on that, so maybe next time I can make sure I don't do it again and I avoid that issue altogether.
So based on that, it looks like it's down it's down quite a bit on oil. You know, what do you do? At least it started up and it ran. I think there's still enough oil to get it in, get it started, get it pulled up to the driveway and see what kind of thing I can get done with it. It's always frustrating when you put something back together and it doesn't always work out, but that's the way that it goes when you're a home mechanic and you're not a professional and you're just trying to make something work here. This might sound ridiculous, but dude, I hate jacking my car up. It's like the bane of my existence.
Feeling only slightly defeated, I couldn't help but think back to when I was putting the engine together. I did remember the rear main install and was pretty confident I didn't fold it, but mistakes do happen, so taking the transmission off the engine and checking was going to be my only option. However, I did have a couple other things I wanted to check as well, just to be sure.
Underneath here and see if we can see anything. So I mean, that might be, there's a good chance that might be just 10 millimeters from the, I'm gonna try to tighten these little bolts up for the oil pan gasket and see if that does anything to help us out. Also, oil pressure switch is unplugged. I'll plug that in too. So here's what I've done. On the top, I haven't done anything. I did have a small fuel leak on the fuel return, so I've redone that and made sure that it's nice and buttoned up, at least as far as I can tell. We'll see in a minute. And then underneath, I went around all the oil pan bolts and just made sure they were tight. I'm not gonna lie to you, there was a couple that weren't tight, especially on this side over here. So I'm hoping that was the oil leak. I went ahead and plugged the oil pressure sending unit back in. I wiped down everything, so I might be able to tell where it's leaking, but you know, we'll see. Actually, there's a little bit more right there I need to wipe down. Anyways, I'm feeling more and more like it was a oil pan gasket and not a rear main seal, so that's good. Back here, I went ahead and zip tied the old exhaust to the shift linkage so it's not rattling on this header. So now to give it a shot. I'm pretty excited to see what happens, honestly. I'm hoping that the oil leak is fixed. I feel like it's fixed, so we're gonna go ahead and start it, check it out, see what we find. So far, so good. I'm gonna let it run here for a little bit. I don't see any. Still got an oil leak. Let's see if we can investigate. Alright guys, so upon further inspection, still have an oil leak from underneath this thing. Other than that, the thing sounds pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain the oil and then check the oil, make sure there's no crazy shavings in there or anything. And then it could still be the oil pan gasket. I just can't tell because it's on the same side as the rear main, but it is leaking really bad. And normally oil pan gaskets, I mean, in my experience, haven't really leaked like that, like a constant drip. So I'm really thinking it's probably the rear main. If it's that, I'll have to take the transmission off, clutch, flywheel, check all that. So it is what it is. Might as well get to work. So after pulling the oil pan, I don't see anything abnormal with the pan itself, but I do see some metal shavings and some like dirt looking stuff in there. I don't know if that's from, I'm not really sure where that's from, but I'm gonna clean it all out and I'm gonna call some help and see if some of those shavings are normal, but I mean, that don't look good. So, but it's not all metal shavings. I did actually hear online though that sometimes you should cut the oil filter open and just see what it looks like inside there. I'm actually kind of scared to see what this one looks like, but I might end up doing that just to check it out. I'm already gonna be tearing the transmission back off the engine anyway. I didn't see anything that was weird with the oil pan gasket itself, so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that it's probably the rear main that's leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to work removing the transmission. I'm hoping that I can do that without removing the engine on an EF. Tell you what, man, this EF stuff is just, it's something else. Like if it was an EG, I could just pull the transmission off the engine while the engine's still in the car. But this might be too tight. I know there's that front cross member that I'll have to take off. I'm gonna give it a shot, see what happens. If I can't get it off, I'll just go ahead and remove the engine again. On EFs, that is really close to the subframe, but I think for how much it wiggles, we got a pretty good gap there. I think it's gonna come out.
After seeing the amount of metal shavings in the pan, I decided it would be a good idea to check the rod bearings to make sure they didn't look abnormal. Luckily, everything did seem to look fine. After checking with my engine specialist, I concluded that maybe the shavings were from not getting the block completely rinsed after washing and honing it. I decided I would just be sure to change the oil and use a new filter, and I moved on to removing the transmission off the block. Never have taken the transmission out of an EF while leaving the engine in before, I had some doubts as to whether there was going to be enough room for the removal or not.
So that's good. I guess it doesn't need much room to be able to come off the transmission. So now we just remove this, look behind there, and hopefully we find a leaky rear main. Hopefully. Got this thing off here. So my first critique of that Amazon seal kit here, I went and got an actual Fel-pro gasket for the rear main, and it's substantially different. Not just on the outer diameter, but on the inner diameter where it actually hugs the crankshaft. It is a smaller diameter. You probably can't tell, but if you feel it, you can feel that this seal comes out and is just much more beefy than this other seal. Even the thickness of the wall on the seal is better. So I think that seal kit's fine for a lot of seals, but maybe not the rear main. I think maybe the rear main you should buy either a Fel-pro or something that has a better reputation. I don't know, just my opinion, but you can tell there's a substantial quality difference. I'm gonna go ahead and get this one put in. I did get all of the RTV for the most part scraped off the back here, and make sure that gets nice and sealed up, and I'll put it back together and we'll try it again. Wondering, it has been a little rough on this thing. I took the transmission off. I put a different rear main seal on it, a Fel-pro one as you saw. That didn't change it. I put it all back together, started back up, still leaking from between the transmission and the engine. So what I did was got a Fel-pro oil pan gasket, started it back up, still the same leak. So what I'm doing now is taking off the transmission once again. I'm going to go ahead and change out the entire rear main seal and main seal plate thing. Anyway, we'll see if that fixes it. I'm hoping that when I take the transmission off, I can get a better look and just see where it's leaking. I shined a light up between there. It looks like it's seeping out of the rear main seal. So I'm going to guess that that's it, but I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Probably not going to film any of that because I'm just to the point now where I want it to be done. The car, however, runs phenomenally. The engine sounds good to me. Once we get the oil leak tracked down, it'll be all I got. The transmission out now, I got everything off of it, and I took the flywheel and the clutch off. And you know that part of the video where I told you that I'm no ASC certified or professional mechanic? Well, this is 100% true because I forgot to do something when I put the engine together, and it's causing a huge oil leak, and that's where my problem was. So after changing the rear main seal, after changing the oil pan gasket, after pulling the transmission off 2 times, here we are. Any of you guys that make stupid mistakes, I've done probably a ton of these engines, but I haven't built them from the ground up very many times, only one other time. It's a huge learning opportunity for me. Let me show you what I did. I went from a cheap rear main seal to a Fel-pro. I went from a cheap oil pan gasket to a Fel-pro, so those aren't leaking. But if I look just above it, just above right here where this plug is, I take this plug out to clean the engine, and when I put it back in, look, I didn't tighten it up.
Man, this shit whack, man.
So it's leaking oil out of that. It's dripping down to here, running down all the way, and then dripping out of where I thought was the oil pan, or I thought the rear main was leaking into this like little lip area and down and out. But it's none of that. It's just the plug up here. So I'll tighten that up, make sure it's tight, and I'll also probably go through the rest of them because there's 3 other ones that look just like this that I may not have tightened as well. So I do, however, know why I did that, because the engine stand bolts up to that side of the engine and I couldn't get a tool back there to tighten that up. And I hate leaving those out because I'm scared I'm gonna lose them, and I don't have a way to replace those very easily, so I normally just screw them back in so I don't lose those. Well, I screwed it back in and I never tightened it up, so here we are. Anyway, I'll tighten that back up, put the engine back together, and I'm willing to bet that we're not gonna have any leaks. Either way, I'm glad that I have a good rear main seal and a good oil pan gasket. I guess that's some positives that came out of this deal. I'm definitely not gonna show me putting it back together because, well, it's the 3rd time and I'm just ready to be done with this thing. Got the transmission put back on, everything hooked back up. I didn't hook up the linkage because I've already done that once and I had to take everything back out. So I'm waiting on that. I also bought a dinosaur, I think they're called the dinosaur clamps. They make it so you don't have to use the pin. Also, it takes all the slop out of the gear shifter. I ordered one of those. Everything's ready to go. I'm ready to start it up, make sure this thing doesn't leak. If it leaks, I'm pretty much gonna be heartbroken. I haven't tried it yet, so we're about to find out together. I have the key on. I still haven't figured out why the key's not working. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. At least it fires right up. I like that. And it would leak pretty quick, so we shouldn't have to wait very long to know. It's a pretty bad oil leak. This front radiator support rattles, so it'll make you think that there's something wrong, but there's not. Those 75A mounts are a little shaky, but they're better than solid. I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and let it run for a little while and just make sure, but I can't let it run too long because it's winter time and it's cold outside and I don't want to die from fumes. I went ahead and let it run for another probably 15 minutes. No issues that I can see. I have a really slow coolant leak, but I can handle a coolant leak. But other than that, I don't see any leaks at all. I think we're ready to move on. I have a skunk 2 exhaust that I purchased from a gentleman at Classic Hondas on the Dragon maybe like a year ago or something. So it's been a long time and I want to go ahead and put that on. Other than that, we're just kind of gonna truck on along. Man, I'm glad that's done. That was really stumping me. This is the first engine that I put together from the ground up by myself. I had some help on the last one. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video right there. We have a running and driving car at this point. Now it's just little things, putting it back together, figuring out why the starter isn't starting the engine off the key, which is just one wire, but I've downloaded a Haynes manual online and it looks like a child wrote up the Haynes manual. I don't know what it was about cars this old, but the wiring diagrams are just really hard to follow. It could just be the Chinese harness, man. That could be the issue. I think that's likely what it is. I also noticed the fan didn't come on anytime in the 15 minutes, so I'll have to kind of track that down. I think that Garage Built Hondas, he had a little issue with that too, so I'll go visit his video and see what I can find. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good night, and for me, it's almost Christmas. I hope you had a good Christmas, because I know this is going to come out probably quite a bit after Christmas time. I hope you have a good Christmas, and I'll see you in the next one. See you.